Hey everyone, welcome back to another lesson. So in this one, we're going to continue building our program. And in this one, we're going to add a very important function that is going to help us calculate, the cards essentially that are being picked by the, by the program. So, whether, the card that were handed out to the user or the computer. So we want to calculate that so we can actually later on use it, right? So we want to take the total value of that card essentially. It's because again, we're playing, blackjack, right? So we need to actually add those up. So how do we do that? Now, there are different ways to do it, but like one of the reasons I want to do it this way, my way, is that I want to create a function because I feel like this is something that we can actually use later on. Like we need to actually pull this function later on and add some values to it. So we need to have a function with inputs and also obviously a function with multiple outputs. And I'm going to explain why. So let's go ahead and define a new function. I'm going to say define. I'm going to call this calculate score. All right, that's what we're going to call it. And we're going to have a function called, or the input called cards. All right, so that's going to be cards. Yeah, just making sure I spelled it right. Yeah, so that's going to be our input, right? So let's do a few things. First thing I want to do is I want to actually add up the cards or the values that are going to be entered as an input in this function. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually add our use the sum function. Now sum is actually something that we've talked about a little bit, I think, in the past, and it has a lot of useful things in it. For example, what it does, it adds a list and number together, so it's really cool. So it adds the numbers in a list and a integer by itself together, so like you can pretty much put everything in it and it's just going to add it up. So it's really cool. It makes it a lot easier on us. So I'm going to say if, but now another thing that I remember that I want to think about is that we got a couple of rules. All right, so the few important ones, for example, is that first, if the cards over, like we hit 21, right, and we have two cards, one of the things that we have to do is that we need to end the game essentially, right? So we need to tell the the user or the program that the game has ended. So we need to actually figure out if you reach 21 in the beginning. So for example, in the beginning, we're going to hand out two cards, right? So if you remember in the previous video, we talked about this. So we use this for loop to hand out two cards to computer and the user. So one of the things we want to do is right off the bat, when we do that, we need to figure out if anyone has actually aced. Okay, so that means that, what if we have the user receiving, or the computer dealer receiving an 11 or an ace and also a jack. So what's going to happen? So they're going to reach 21, right? They're automatically going to win. So we need to make sure we count that as well. That's very important. And another thing is that we want to remember when we calculating the score, we need to remember that if the user has an ace, that means the 11. So that's like the card. So if you have the 11, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we turn it to a 1 in case if the sum of the cards are over 21. Right? So for example, if you have an ace and you have an 8, we want to turn the 11 to 1 because obviously 11 plus 8, or actually let's say you have an ace and again a 10, right? So that would be, or something like that. Again, we want to make sure that the ace is not going to help us go over 21, right? If it does, we're going to turn that ace to 1, right? So that's two things we need to do. So let me actually do it and I'll explain it as I'm going to create this, so it's easier for me to visually explain it. So we're going to say if some of the cards, let's do it that way, so equals 21, and the length of the cards also equals 2. So essentially what we're telling is that if the total of the cards that we already received in this function, in this for loop, are 21, and the length of the cards are 2, meaning that we just got 2 cards so far, what you need to do is you need to return 0. So we're going to use this 0 later on. So the idea with me having a 0 is that I'm just saying that, hey, that means we're going to return 0. This means that someone has won. All right, so someone has reached 21. Whether it's the user or the dealer or computer, right? So that's the first thing we need to have. So again, that's just like having defining that, hey, if the sum of the cards is 21 and the length of the cards is 2, we're going to return this. So next one is we're going to have another if function. We're going to have another if statement, and we're going to say if 11 in cards and sum of the cards bigger than 21, we're going to do something. So again, the idea with this is that we're going to say if 11, that means the ace is in the cards and the sum of these cards is bigger than 21. For example, we have 11, we got 5, and then we got 10, right? Something like that. I don't know, like, you know, let's say we got these, and like, you know, obviously we got 10, 5, so that's 15, and we got an 11, that's going to be, you know, another, like, we're going to be reaching 26, right? So we're going to turn that to a 1. So how do we do this? We use this, you know, append function to add something to a list, right? So we also you can use another, you know, a list function called remove to remove something from the list. We talked about this, I think, a long time ago, but again, it's just one of those things that you want to pick up as you go and as you create more, write more code. So we're going to say cards, and I'm going to say remove, and we're going to remove 11, all right? And next, I'm going to say cards append, and we're going to append 1. So essentially, we're taking 11 out and appending 1. All right. So obviously, one more thing I want to add to this is we want to add the return, and I'm going to add this return to well, we need to have an output, right? So I'm going to say sum of the cards. So the idea again with this is that we just want to return the sum. This is something I should have added actually in the beginning, honestly, to this, but well, I didn't. It's fine. But either way, you know, so we have basically this function which is going to help us to calculate the score. All right. So we add the cards, and it's gonna like look at this like different conditions, right? So if it's an ace, like if it's a 21, we're just gonna return 0, and if it's 11, if it has 11 and it's over 21, it's going to return, you know, it's going to return this. It's going to like change the 11 to 1. But either way, if none of these happen, it's just gonna do this, right? It's going to say return sum and some of these cards that we just put. For example, we can put like 1, 5, like 10, something like that. Again, that's just depending on what the, you know, what this random function is going to choose, right? But either way, that's what we're going to do. And this is basically what we did here. We just like made a function that is going to do two very simple things. Okay, so I'm going to actually, moving forward, I'm going to comment this. I'm just not going to do it on the video. Off the video, I'm going to comment this out so we kind of understand it better a little bit as we like, you know, write this code, because I know we're going to have a lot of codes. I think we're going to reach like maybe 70, 80 lines, but I'm going to keep it a little bit shorter if possible, but it's better if we comment it out. So that's something I'm going to do off the video. And finally, when you access the final file, you definitely are going to access the code with comments and everything. Anyways, so make sure you do this as well. I hope this was helpful, and I hope this made sense. If you got a little bit confused about the calculate score and what it really does, again, it just adds the numbers together, but it's going to check for a few rules or conditions, right? So it's going to check if we hit 21 from the beginning when we get 2 cards, it's going to return a 0. And if we actually have, if the numbers are over 21 and we have an 11, it's going to just take the 11 out and put a 1 instead. And if none of these actually are true, and then none of these actually check out, it's just going to add these and give us the total, right? It's like adding 2 numbers together. Very simple, right, guys? So let me know if you have any questions. If not, I'll see you in the next lesson.